Evening. Welcome back to the program here in our Northwest Florida studios. I'm Buddy Martin. It's time for Meldon Law Monday. That means the QB himself, Shane Matthews, is standing by in the orange and blue room. We'll hear from him. No doubt he has lots to say about what I said regarding the Florida softball team. And he'll fill me up with it, I'm sure, and I deserve it. Also, on a very somber note, we'll hear from Steve Spurrier tonight, remembering his late friend Norm Carlson, the great Mr. C, who passed away on Friday, my good friend. I'll tell you all about that. So stand by. And then, of course, it's Monday night. That means Franz Beard will join us to talk about, among other things, the miracle softball finish and what's ahead now. Stand by. The Buddy Martin Show is about to be on the air. Go there and let's go right to the orange and blue room and talk to our good friend Shane Matthews, who's standing by. What's up, Shaner?
How we doing, buddy?
Good. You're another one of your uptight modes. I can see that. You're sweating out something here. I can tell. You must have a heart rate of about 2. You have the incredible ability to relax like nobody I've ever known, which is great.
Well, buddy, it's easy. You get your recliner and do your show from it.
I hadn't thought about that. Maybe that's what my mistake is in. I'm just trying to get on the air, Shane. I'm just trying to get going, be like you, my friend. Okay, we have lots to talk about tonight here on Meldon Law Monday. Number one, RIP to my good friend Norm Carlson, who passed on Friday. And I know you mentioned it on your show today. I talked to Coach Spurrier earlier today. We're going to have a bite from him. He was in the airport in Dallas. And when I called him on Friday, he had not heard. And so that's a huge loss to everybody, but especially Steve, who was so close to him. And they had one of the great runs of anybody in sports, the two of them. I know you know all about him, and I've known Norm. I knew Norm from the minute he stepped foot on campus. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. So, on a positive note, what happened to these Gator softball players? Shane, they were shot out of a cannon. They jumped up to all the way up to number 4, and now will host the Super Regional. And good things happen. I got to give you credit. You saw it coming. I did not. I'm going to go up front to say right now, I was wrong. Then I thought I was right because I said I didn't know. But boy, was I ever wrong. And I have egg on my face because this softball team, Tim Walton did one of the great coaching jobs ever done at Florida just this past 10 games, Shane.
Well, they were a very good team before the last 10 games. I mean, it shows you. I don't know if I've ever seen a team in the Southeastern Conference. The first five girls in the lineup all are first team All SEC.
I
Then
heard
you
you say
have
that. Yeah.
then you have the Player of the Year in the SEC.
Hmm.
You have the runner-up Player of the Year in the SEC. You have last year's Player of the Year in the SEC, and you got the Freshman of the Year in the SEC. So this team, in my opinion, it's one of his best he's ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you got two true freshmen pitching. Uh, Offensively, I'll put them up against any team he's had. They're that good. They play good ball down the stretch, but they've been a good solid team. There was never a doubt they weren't going to host regionals. It's just were they going to be a super regional, and some of their non-conference games kept their RP out or whatever because you knew playing in the SEC you're going to have a high RPI because all 13 teams made it.
Yeah. And then were you surprised at that?
No, not at all. When you look at it, all 15 teams made it. The top two seeds in the tournament are playing in the SEC next year.
Mhm. Yeah, that's right. Counting those two guys. They're glomming onto it, man. They're all a part of the party and bring it just as well. Uh, Baseball, not so much, Shane. Unfortunate. tough way to lose. They still got a chance here. I guess I heard you on your show talking about how they have to win 2 out of 3 versus Georgia to get
Well,
in.
they do, but I call Cardozo and um, they have to they can get into the tournament postseason play in the NCAA tournament as long as they have a 500 or better record.
Okay, I
So
thought that
meaning
was right.
meaning you have to. I mean, look, let's win 2 out of 3 in Georgia if we can, and
Mhm.
then the problem is you go to the tournament, you win a game, that means you're going to play another game, so you have an opportunity to lose it. So it could actually hurt you. It's been disappointing, but they lost too many good players off last year's team, man. And take nothing away from the players they have this year, but they just aren't the same talent level.
True.
And it is what it is. And football and baseball, to me, the seasons have gone the same way. Everybody says, if we catch pop fly or if we field this ground ball or if, we lay down a bunt, a lot of little things happen that cost you baseball games. Well, a lot of little things happen that football games as well.
You're right. It's funny how things could have been different for the football team, although I think things are beginning to look up a bit. I wrote a column on Saturday, saying I'm choosing to take a different position on how I feel about Gator football. Now, I'm like, let's be honest, I'm a journalist, I'm a writer, I'm a commentator, I'm a show host, and I'm a Gator fan, all the above. So I'm a little bit of each, but there've been so many miserable seasons lately with the losing seasons 3 in a row. And I said, how about, and this actually came from somebody who was probably the most caustic person on our show regarding the Gators. That was David Moulton. I'll tell you about it a little bit later on. We had a discussion about how do you write something positive when you don't see anything positive, right? And I said to David, well, what would you write? He wrote a column for 10 years, 3 times a week, if you're trying to do something good on the Gators and something interesting. And he told me, so I just say, hey, come along with me on this ride. This can happen. Look what's happened in the past. And when I got through talking to him about it, he kind of convinced me. And I went back and thought, it's just as easy to say, these are all winnable games, as you have said about this awful schedule. With that awful schedule comes opportunity. And Shane,
Mm-hmm.
before you came along in 1990, there were a lot of seasons where the schedules they had were really hard because they couldn't beat the big teams. So it's irrelevant when you get out as good as they are. So I'm having a little bit of an attitude change about that, working on myself to see. But like I said, let's look at college football a different way. I wrote more like going to a concert or a play or a movie with no guaranteed happy ending. You don't get happy endings in movies all the time. Pay your money, take your chances, and you can do whether you prefer the arts or nature or sports, museums or cooking, whatever you do. You go with expectations, but it isn't always going to go your way. I don't know how you feel about that, but this team is not that far away, Shane. If he can survive this next year or two, they got a shot at having a pretty nice program.
Yeah, I mean, we can sit here and talk about what we want to talk about, but we got to win games, and they're not far away if you can block and I mean, if you can tackle somebody. I mean, look, I was in arguments, not really arguments, but friends of mine playing golf. All they want to talk about was the offense. I'm like, you people obviously do not watch the games. If Florida could just stop somebody, uh, you know, not even a third of the time, they win multiple games, like more games
Hmm.
than they lost. So I mean, we can sit here and rehash it all, but is Florida explosive on offense? No. Are they going to be? Probably not. But they're going to be good enough on offense to win games. Can we rush the passer and tackle anybody? That's simple. It's that simple. I don't know how else to put it. It's that simple.
Yes, you're right. And you said the whole along, it's not the offense now, it's the defense. I think things are coming around. I think once they get past the silly mistake stage of having their same wrong numbers on 2 numbers are the same on the field
Well,
and all that.
that's special teams. I think that'll get cleared up. But even with those silliness, just dumb stuff on special teams, if you can rush the passer and you can tackle, you win football games. We have not done that in multiple years. I mean, we've put up historical numbers, and it just baffles me that people can sit here and continue worrying about the damn offense.
Hmm.
I just don't get it.
I think some people consider themselves experts on offense, Shane, and that's
Well, I
obviously not.
love offensive football.
Well, you're an expert. You're an
Am I
expert.
saying we're going to score 45 points a game? No, but we're playing well enough on offense to win games.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, we did last year. I don't know how we're going to. I expect us to be a lot better. I think we're going to be much better on offense. But if you break down last year's games, you can bitch about Billy Napier's play call here or play call there. You can blame a couple of bonehead plays on special teams. But if you really watch the games, if you rush the passer, not sack the guy, just pressure the quarterback a little bit,
Hmm.
and you tackle, you win probably four more football games.
Yeah, I think you made that point well, and you're right. And I think it's exactly what Billy wants to do. You're not that far away if you make the plays that you should make. And I'm talking about having to have a 350-pound edge rusher, who runs a 4.2. They've got adequate material there. Speaking of which, where do you stand on well, it's not even rumors more than that, Cormani McLean, the 5-star who jilted Florida and went out to Colorado, and now he's back. He's going to take a visit to Florida. He's saying things like very positive things about Florida all of a sudden. And he's been bounced around a lot. However, he's a talented guy. What's your position on him?
I mean, if Coach Napier and the staff thinks he can help us and be a good teammate on the roster, I'm all for it. If they think he's going to be a cancer or
Mm-hmm.
cause issues, we don't need him. I mean, I love our secondary right now. I think this could be our best secondary we've had in years.
Mm. Who's responsible for that, Shane?
For what? The secondary?
Yeah, been getting better.
Well, um, Jason Marshall Jr. and Devin Moore, you two corners, have been here, and I think they're NFL guys. Uh, you got the Jackson kid who played last year as a true freshman. But in the secondary, we got. I mean, in the safety position, we got a lot of transfers. Kid from DJ Douglas from Tulane, Asa Turner from Washington. You got the kid. I forgot his name from Oregon. So they've gone out and addressed their problems. You got to remember, you go to the transfer portal and put people in position, or you're looking at the positions where you know you're not very good.
Mm.
So that right there at the safety position has been a huge problem for a while.
Yeah, it's just the way McLean did it. I don't know. It's like he bounced around a bunch, and other people were. I don't know him. I can't say. I'm not going to pass judgment on the kid. But his quote was, "I really like where Florida's at right now." He visited here recently, so that's positive. That would certainly be a
No,
plus.
yeah, I mean, I don't follow recruiting. I guess it was down between us and Colorado. And he chose Colorado, and it's a long ways from Lakeland, Florida. It's cold as
Mm-hmm.
hell. He probably want to come back home,
Mm.
and things didn't work out for whatever reason there. And like I said, I don't think Billy Napier will. Some people say be a walk on. I don't really know, but the culture on the team is pretty good. And the last thing you want to do is bring somebody in to ruin that. And I'm not saying the kid will. I'm just saying it's up to our coaches if they want him on the team or not.
I have a question. Could you be an NIL, have an NIL deal with the paid your tuition?
With the who?
Could you have an NIL? Could someone pay McLean money, an NIL deal to pay his tuition?
Oh yeah, I don't know why not. I mean, a lot of people think that's the way it should be right now.
Hmm. That would be interesting. All right. For a moment, suspend football. Let's go back to the remarkable thing that the softball team did. I mean, Rothrock could pitch forever. I'm amazed how these women pitch every game. And she was brilliant. Pitcher of the year. Um, the whole team, they had Skylar had a world class tournament. I mean, talk about some of the performances that you saw. They hit the ball, they fielded the ball, they played the ball. They really did take command, and they win 9 out of 10, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they're top five batters. When you with Kendra Falvey, Skylar Wallace, Jocelyn Erickson, Corby Otis, and Reagan Walsh, all five made first team All SEC. Buddy, think about
Wow,
that.
wow,
One of them is last year's Player of the Year,
yeah,
and two of them are this year's Player of the Year and this year's runner up. So, and then Mia Williams, Jason Williams' daughter, who
yeah. I
struggled.
didn't realize that's who that was till just this weekend.
Yeah, she was highly acclaimed coming in with this freshman class. Struggled at the plate, and she hit two bombs,
Yeah,
and
she
it's
did.
good to see. I mean, I wouldn't expect that um, going forward. Hope it
Mm-hmm.
happens. She has not swung the bat very well,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, it's there's and what's crazy is, buddy, you know how many seniors they have in the starting lineup?
Two.
Well, it's really one and a half. Skylar Wallace, which I think she is the greatest softball player to ever play at Florida.
He's heard you
In my
say that. That's a lot of territory you're covering there. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, there's only Amanda Lorenz you put in that category. You put Lauren Hager in that category. Now, Lauren pitched and hit, but I think Skylar Wallace is unbelievable. But they rotate the right field position with some seniors, some underclassmen, but everybody else will be back unless they go take NIL
Well,
money somewhere else. But
gonna be good a
it's
long time. You know Tim really well, one of your best friends. What's his secret?
Tim's just a very good. What he's a baseball guy, but he's been
Yeah,
coaching softball his whole life.
yeah.
He he never like if something is not working, he makes changes, and he's
Mm.
always finding some edge for his team. And these girls play with an edge, and you know it's a game of failure. He realizes, and the girls realize that there are going to be times when you go over multiple times. You just got to hang in there. But I saw a stat when Kendra Falvey, their leadoff hitter, and whatchamacallit, Skylar Wallace both score. The Gators are like 30-1 this year.
Wow, what a stat that is. Amazing. Well, I'm impressed. Again, I was wrong. Of course, I will defend myself by saying I said this 15 games ago, and I'll take full responsibility. I said they're not at this moment an elite team. You argue with me, and you turned out to be right. I didn't see it. You did. But they sure are an elite team now. I mean, you saw what was there. I didn't, and you know Walt's coaching better than I do. So, congratulations, terrific job. So, hey Shane, did you see the SEC hoop schedule? A new one?
I have not seen the schedule. But before you talk about the schedule, we got to give a
Yeah,
shout out to women's lacrosse, buddy. They're
yeah.
one game away from the Final Four.
Boy, really?
They they upset the seventh ranked Virginia Lady Cavaliers. They play
Wow.
Maryland Thursday, and then track just continues to do what they do. And Parker Valby might be the most decorated female athlete we've ever had here.
Mm.
She's unbelievable.
Yeah. And the golf team is what? They're
Golf team is up in West Lafayette.
they're fourth right
They're
now.
fourth place. I think the top five move on, but they got 2 more days of competition.
Yeah.
Played decent today. They're stuck with Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is they're loaded.
Mm. A lot of good things happen. We're going to get to that in just a little bit later in here in a minute. But I wanted to say this: I haven't studied it, but I know a lot of people are complaining about the schedule, the new SEC basketball schedule. Florida does not play a home game against Kentucky, which is not good.
Well, it's not, but I mean, you got what 16 teams in there now. I don't know
Yeah,
how they figure it. I mean, we may the following year we may have Kentucky here, but
yeah.
um, it is what it is. I
They play
mean,
Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina twice each. Oklahoma and Texas will both make the trip to Gainesville. So change is coming because of our friends out west. And some of us, it's going to be hard to swallow. Not having Kentucky just doesn't seem right. Georgia, South Carolina, be Florida's permanent home opponents, and because of 16 games. Anyway, no Kentucky at home. I don't
Well,
know.
here's the thing. You can look at it two ways. So we have permanent opponents in basketball. Is that what they said? Every year?
I guess those are the two. Yeah, I
All
mentioned.
right, so South Carolina and Georgia. Would
Yeah.
you rather have South Carolina and Georgia as your permanent opponents, or would you rather have Tennessee and Kentucky?
As a fan, I'd rather have Tennessee, Kentucky. As a coach, I'd rather
Well, you mean as somebody who wants to watch a game? You're
yeah,
not talking about like
right.
I think the true Gator fan
Yeah,
would rather play South Carolina and Georgia
could
because
be
they
right.
know that we should be
Could be
better than
right.
them.
I just have a little different view of that, but I'm kind of torn. It's like what I said a while ago. I'm a fan. I'm also a journalist, a writer, broadcaster. So I understand it, why it's a break not to, but it just seems, I guess it's changed. And with change, it's difficult things. I'm okay with it. I got something to ask you about now.
What's that?
Now, and I'm going to tell you about Mellon Law after that. Think about this. All the money's been spent and what's going to be spent on facilities. Because you said this numerous times over the last few years. You said until we get caught up on facilities,
Uh-huh.
we're never going to be able to compete.
Well, we're
I
caught
would,
up.
well, I want to ask you about that. How much? Just hold that thought, and
Hmm.
how much have we caught up? How much have we, and how much is there to go? So I have a stat for you. You're going to like it. All right. But
All
first,
right.
let me tell you about Meldon Law. I want to remind you folks that this Friday night, Meldon Law is having their Scholar Athlete Awards be announced at the stadium on Friday. If all is well, I hope I'll be able to be there for it. Meldon Law has been doing this a long time, recognizing some outstanding athletes in high school around the area for their academics and athletics. They also are the one law firm, University of Florida, the pension fund for any kind of damages. They're the official law firm for Florida in that regard. Also, they do tremendous things in the community. Have been doing it for a long time. And if you want to get into the goodies, they have a lot of things they give away. Go to the website, Meldon Law, check out what they do. They give away tickets all the time. Of course, they sponsor a lot of things in Gator sports. So check them out. Jeffrey will be on the program with me later this week. And he, of course, is a super Gator. Saw him last week at Spurs. Meldon Law, they won't back down. All right. You said for a long, long time that the Gators needed to get facilities and they needed to
Hmm.
get them before they ever competed, right? Know what you
Yep.
said? Number two. Well,
Absolutely.
I just read this story. I don't know who Brad Crawford is, but he's in 247 Sports. He picked their top 30 college football facilities in the country.
Hmm.
Guess what part of that wound up?
Well, ours, even though ours is pretty new, it's outdated, but at least we have one now. I would say we're 12.
You're exactly right. It's right.
Really?
12 is what it is. Yeah. And because of their leasing renovations and the plans, they talked about the $400 million renovation program coming for Ben Hill Griffin.
Oh,
And
hang on. So what is he categorizing as facilities?
I guess everything,
Oh, I
stadium,
thought we talked.
no,
So when I've always talked about facilities, buddy, I've always been talking about a
football
standalone
facility. Yeah,
facility.
right. I
I
know.
don't give a crap about the arena that the teams play in.
Yeah. Well,
There's only one terrible arena in the SEC, and that's Vanderbilt.
yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about the everyday operation. We were pretty much the last one in America to have a damn football standalone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was.
And it was only
That's
50 yards long then when they started making it. So
well, I'm
sure
talking
enough.
about like meeting room,
Yeah, I
uh,
got you.
just everything right there.
Right. Well, I'm
Um,
trying to make a point here, even though it's different than what you're talking about, is they've gone from being among the worst facilities in the country and the last ones to upgrade to now they're making a top 12 list if you include all their plans. Their renovation, $400 million, which we don't know much about yet. And they did get the facelift, of course, with $45 million facility. So they do have all the goodies and things. They've gone in the eyes of the country. That's what we're talking about here. In the eyes of recruits, Florida now is among the top in the country, which now you get something going. I think can be a huge asset for recruiting.
That football facility was the number one thing we had to have. I
Yeah,
mean, when you don't have one, here's the problem: we didn't have one, and the year we moved into it was the year NIL hit. So we got
yeah,
clobbered. It was such horrible timing for our
yeah.
university to have all that happen at one time.
It was. Timing is everything, as we know. All right, Shane, I'm gonna jump around here for a second. Other things. I know you don't put too much into what the who the announcers are when you watch a game. In fact, when
Hmm.
you can, you turn them down and listen to the radio. But this is talking NFL, you have to. Apparently, Tom Brady now is officially going and pick for his first game. I know you're waiting with that bated breath. He'll call the Cowboys and the Browns for Fox coming up this fall. Will be his first game. So being paid a gazillion dollars. I've yet to
He's
see how
he's
this is
on,
going to shake. Mhm.
he's on the number one team, right, with Kevin
Right.
Burkhardt.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought Greg Olson was outstanding.
I
Who was
did
with
too.
him?
I did too.
I don't know who or I don't even know if he still works for Fox.
I loved watching him call a ball game. It was very clear. It was good. He had good information, good research, but he ain't Tom Brady. And that's the name of that game, isn't it? It's the
Yeah,
almighty personality, right? So,
yeah, it'll be great to see. I mean, I'm sure we'll hear Tom. Now, is that a preseason game or a regular
no,
season
it's a
game?
regular season game. They
Well, we'll
announced,
hear him. He'll be doing preseason games before
oh, yeah,
that.
no, I'm just saying they've announced that's their first, it was announced by Fox today as the first game that he's officially assigned, I guess. I don't know. Any news, he's got Tom Brady is always it. So, all right. So here's a question for Dan Bond. Do you think Brady will be good at announcing? I'll let you answer that.
I do. I think he's going to be really good. I don't know why I think that, but I mean, he's a quarterback, so he should be able to explain a lot of stuff, as does Romo when he announces.
Mhm.
I think Romo goes a little overboard at times, but I think Brady will be pretty good.
I think you're right. He has a lot of access to a lot of information. I know that. And if his delivery is good, and why shouldn't have been? He's had plenty of practice at it. I think it'll be really well for Brady. And again, for us, that's what we want. Uh, Shane, let's talk about Mr. Carlson, okay?
Hmm.
Norm Carlson was a dear friend of mine. I'm writing a piece right now on him for this later this week. You probably didn't know this, but when Norm Carlson came to Florida the year he was hired, I was the runner-up for the job,
Oh, I
and
did not know that.
yeah, I didn't really. I inadvertently got the shot at it because a friend of mine called me from Gainesville and said they fired Jimmy Gay. They don't have a new person yet, and and you and I can get you all list there at Florida. I said I've just taken a job in Nashville. My friend who was an attorney said, "Let me see what I can do." And he called Ray Graves. Ray Graves said, "Tell Buddy to hang around a couple of days. We got a guy that we're looking at. If he doesn't take the job, we'll talk." So I'm thinking, what the heck? Okay, so I did. That guy was Norm Carlson. He was coming from Auburn. Norm and I had many good laughs about it. He liked to dramatize, but said, "Yeah, we were both being recruited. Buddy was in one hotel room, I was in another, and we're going back and forth." And that happened, of course. But Norm did a terrific job. He was the right guy, and I said to Coach Spurrier, "I'd hate to be the guy. I'd hate to be the guy who would keep you two guys from getting together because you had a great run together." Shane, you got time to hear a little bit of this Coach Spurrier comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
I stand by. Francis in the green room. Let's see here.
And what a wonderful guy. one of probably the most well-liked, admired sports information directors of all time, and very good at his job also.
I was thinking about the first time you met him or saw him, what it must have been like, because he was not an imposing figure with his horn-rimmed glasses and spoke kind of quiet but really sharp.
Yeah.
Can you remember the first time you laid eyes on Norm
Oh, I
Carlson?
think he was just introduced to all the freshman team, as our sports information guy. We didn't pay a whole lot of attention at that time. We'd never had a sports information guy in high school, so it was a little something new for probably all of us. But obviously, on my sophomore year and so forth, when I started playing a bit, got to know him very well. And, a lot of people, I think I told you he had a lot to do with maybe me winning the Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom McEwen and you and a lot of other guys that wanted a Florida guy to win it were certainly helpful. But anyway, Norm's one of those guys when he talks, all the other sports information guys around the country really listen to him. He's such a well-liked guy. One of my favorite stories is in '90, my first year here, he right before the SEC media days, they had a scramble golf tournament. You know that story?
I do. Tell it again, though.
Okay. So Norm says, you want to play in the media scramble? I said, sure, I got nothing to do. So we went up a day early, and we played with Golden Flakes manager guy and Julie Strauss, who works for him. And so the four of us, we win the dang tournament. I think we shot 14 under scramble. And Norm made a bunch of putts. And I tell you what, we talked about that SEC Media Day champs for the rest of our lives every now and then. He's, when you win a championship, you can talk about it forever. So, yeah, Norm was on top of the world with all his sports information buddies around the conference now. He was the champ. And, but just to tell you what a nice guy he was, in 97 or 8, I forget what year it was, I called a whole bunch of boosters. And I said, I need 1,000 or 2,000 from you. We're going to pay off Norm and Sylvia's mortgage at his place at the beach. And I said, I'm raising 50 grand. And I tell you what, I think we raised about 55. And everybody was willing to pitch in for Norm. Wasn't any big deal. It was the easiest fundraiser I've ever done. So that was a fun. You were at that event, weren't you?
I wasn't at that one, but I was at many events at Norm's. As a matter of fact, you might not know the story, but I was runner-up for that job. It said I had taken a job in Nashville and was on my way out the door. Right? Yeah, when my friend Gus Musty called me and said there's an opening in Gainesville. They don't have a guy yet, and you should. I'll call Ray Graves on your behalf. I said, fine, call it. And bottom line is that I never had a shot, but I didn't know that. But Norm was their guy, and Ray said if he didn't take it, then we'll give you a strong consideration. So I would hate to think I'd have been the guy that knocked you out of a relationship with Norm, which is one of the longest standing, closest relationship two people ever had in sports. And I will say I was thrilled to be there to cover you and to work with Norm. And then I spoke at Norm's retirement party. So, and normally I like to play that big, like, yeah, well, Buddy and I were stashed in a hotel room, and and they were talking to him and talking to me, and I like we were two hot recruits. There wasn't any recruiting. And Carlson had the job. All he had to say was yes. But it turned out to be a good run, and you guys had a terrific relationship. And Normie was a very competitive guy. People didn't know that about him. He played basketball in St. Louis in a good high school. He played against Augie Reiner's team, late Augie Reiner, and they beat Augie's team, and Norm never let him forget that. So you brought out the competitive parts of Norm Carlson.
Yeah, yeah. Another story. After we beat FSU 52-20, he's one of the first guys out on the field, gave me a quick little hug, and he says, "Congratulations, Horry, we're national champs." And I said, well, now, have they already voted? Back then they had to vote afterwards. He said, well, no, they hadn't voted yet, but I think they're going to vote for us. I said, well, I don't want to act like a fool out here, jumping and hugging everybody like we national champs, unless we are. But, it's funny how that's how we did it back then.
Yeah, it's a different
I
deal.
guess we were confident that they were going to vote for us, but there was about 4 or 5 teams that had one loss, as it ended up that year. But we had the big win at the end of the year against the number 1 team, which I guess put us over the top pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah, you had a really unusual situation for people that don't know the whole thing. You were at Duke, and Norm was still there, and there was a lot of transition going on in Florida. A little tough times at that point in time. Norm didn't get the best treatment in the world at that time, and when you came back as coach, you kind of gave him a new birth. In what he did, and you guys worked tightly together for a long period of time. So I would say you had a terrific run together as friends, and you got things done together. And I want to go back to one point to a clarification, so make sure that I've got it right. And that when you came up with the Heisman Trophy, Norm had a plan, and one of the plans he had was to write out a bunch of cards. Nobody did that back then. The sports centers all over the South about the Steve Spurrier guy. So you had some notification. People knew about you, and of course, when you kicked the field goal and won it and all that, a lot of that was due in part to what Norm did. But as you remember, Steve, guys from the Southeast didn't win the Heisman very often, and there was some question whether you would be able to overcome that Eastern Bloc, which you did. So I know you thought about that many times.
Yeah. When it comes down to voting, you gotta you gotta get your votes lined up, I guess. And Norm and a bunch of writers that covered Florida, I think all you guys, especially you and Tom McEwen, did a good job getting the word out, so forth.
Yeah, Tom did a great job. All right, so now I don't know any particulars. I know the family is getting together on the information now about what they're going to do and services and whatever. And I know you said you talked to him 2 weeks ago, and you had thought you'd see him again. Talk about your last time you talked to him and your memories of that. And
Well, I'm upset I didn't go back down there and see him. He sounded fine when I talked to him. He said, when you're here, come on by, and this, that, and the other. So obviously, I wish I had gone 2 or 3 weeks ago. But anyway, yeah, we wish, Jerry and I wish we'd have gone by there, but we didn't. So we said of course, we wouldn't have said our goodbyes because he sounded good on the phone. And then, I guess when your time's up, it's, you don't gradually ease on out. Sometimes you just go. And that must have been how it happened with Norm.
well, 90 years old, you had a good run. All right, there's that talk with Coach Spurrier. Obviously, he's upset he didn't get a chance to see him. Shane, I know you knew him a little bit. This guy knew him a little bit.
Yeah,
Talk about
I love
Norm. He was one of a kind, and he had many chances to leave there and didn't. And I know it came late in your life, but you saw him and what his value was to the university. Talk about him.
Mr. C was the best. I mean, I had to spend a lot of time with him, being the quarterback year round, sports information guys, with interviews and stuff. And Coach told that funny story about him calling boosters. He also called former players. Uh, and I wrote a check for Mr. C's condo, and you know how Coach is. I want to go, Coach. Why don't you just pay for the whole damn condo? Why are you calling us? But yeah, he was one of a kind, and obviously 90, 91 years old. He lived a good life.
He did. And here's a guy who knew him as well and saw him. Good evening to you, friends. And I know you have many good Norm stories. And I mean, right now, Shane, you don't have to put up with it. But in the real world, where you're trying to have to deal as a beat writer or a columnist, the new guys, it's just night and day, friends, isn't it?
Oh, Norm's cultivated relationships. I wrote about that a couple days ago. I said, this was his specialty. He cultivated relationships, and by cultivating relationships, he he knew stuff about you. I don't know how. I threw in my column this thing about in 1999, late toward the year, I guess it was. I ran into him and he says, Charlie Pell's got cancer. And I didn't know that. And he said, why don't you give him a call? And Charlie and I hadn't spoken in years. And I said, well, I don't know that Charlie really wants to talk to me. He'd probably get mad about it because we had a real dust up. And he said, no, go ahead, do it. He'll appreciate it. I made the call. Best call I should have made a long time ago because whether it was my fault or Charlie's fault, I should have been man enough to um, to offer apologies and stick a hand out. He
Yeah.
could have refused it, but I wouldn't have known that. Norm knew. Now how Norm knew, I don't know. I'll never know that. But he knew stuff like that.
Yeah.
SMU game 1975. You remember the days when Shane. Do you remember such a thing as typewriters? I don't know. It may be
Yeah,
that.
they still had those when I was in college.
Okay, all right. Didn't know. So
I
you,
didn't
you
I
guys,
didn't, I didn't use one because I don't know how to type, but there were no computers. There were still typewriters back in my days.
okay. Norm comes up behind me, and my typewriter ribbon had jammed and torn. And he looks in there. He says, "I might be able to help you with that." And he says, "That's a Remington, right?" And I went, "Yeah." And sure enough, he comes and gets one. And I was ready to throw my old Remington portable out the front of the press box, and who had, and whoever was below was going to have to pay a price for it.
Mm.
Little things like that.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna get Shane out of here, but I want to, and you and I got to catch up, Francis, on a couple of things. But one story I wanted to tell. This has never been told before. When I was doing talk radio in Ocala, there was a certain quarterback playing for the Florida Gators who liked to go out and have a cocktail or two. The thing about it, get on nice now, they were supposed to be in. And I kept getting this call from one guy who was a very knowledgeable Gator fan there in Gainesville, who said, you better tell Coach Spurrier to watch out for him because he's going to get busted and it's going to be trouble for the program. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. He kept on me about it. So he was out again last night, drinking out in public. And I said, all right, let me make a call. And I called Norm. I said, Norm, I don't really care what they do, but I'm telling you kind of calls off the air I'm getting. And I wanted to tell you about this one that's happening. And I said, you need to probably tell Steve about it at least. So he said, okay. I saw him a day later. He said, how about you tell him about it? He wanted me to tell him about it. Why me? He didn't want to tell Coach Spurrier about this. I've never told that on Norm. So, okay. I'll tell him. I really don't like this. It's not my job. I'm not ratting on players, but this is going to go public because the guy's going to say it on the air, and then it's too late. So I went to Steve and I said, I'll give you the report that I heard. Do what you want to with it, whatever. And so he did. He confronted his quarterback that afternoon. Where were you last night? Oh, yeah, you weren't out so and so drinking? Well, yeah. How long were you there? Oh, a couple hours. He suspended him for a big game that Saturday. He did not play. This quarterback, whose name you know well, right? I felt terrible about it, for my part in it. But he didn't, once he knew, he wasn't going to hide it, was he, Shane?
No, no, he had a rule. He said you can go out drinking uh, on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays.
Right. This was a
After
Thursday
Wednesday,
night. Thursday night, he was
after
out drinking.
Wednesday, after Wednesdays, no, can't go out.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was caught. So anyway, just one of those many things that Coach Spurrier did. Well, we're going to miss Normie. He was a great friend. Did a great job for a lot. He loved the University of Florida. I love the quote Scott Carter had about him from one of his sons, saying he had many other opportunities to go other places, NFL, different places, but his life was University of Florida. He loved it, and that's where he's going to stay. And it's nice to hear someone here. Here's the quote right here. He said he had opportunities in NFL, in Major League Baseball, and countless other universities and bowl games, because people liked him. He was good at what he did, and but he was a Gator to his core. They didn't care if there were more money out there elsewhere. He had found a home, and his found his home. He was smart enough to stay with the thing that made him happiest, being part of the Gator family. Boy, how refreshing is that, dear guys, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a good man.
Yeah. All right, Shane. Tomorrow morning, how you got a great guest tomorrow?
I got Buddy, then I got your buddy Tim Walton.
Don't put us on the air at the same time. I don't want to get chewed out.
I won't. I won't tell. I won't tell Tim you doubted the Lady Gator softball team.
Yeah. Uh, by the way, last week when I said that about being a big star, and you said, yeah, it was, you mentioned my friend got the biggest kick out of that. He thought that was so funny. He said, yeah, I got a big star. It ain't you, pal, basically. All right, Shane, you take care, buddy. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
See you,
night.
France, buddy.
Talk to you in the
Y'all take
morning.
care.
Take care of it.
Talk to you in the morning. All right, Francis, I'm going to take a second to tell folks about some of our fine sponsors. And I want you to tell me how in the world this softball team do what they just did. I mean, unbelievable run. One of the great runs ever by any team ever. You wrote a nice piece about it. Let me get this first, and I'll tell you about TitanMRI.com. They're making it easier for all of us to get tests. You know what? One thing we're not fond of going to the doctor and getting tests and having to deal with things and appointments and waiting in line. And one thing Titan MRI does, they're trying to make the customer experience much better for you and accommodate you in a way that only they could do. So what they do, Titan MRI is North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing facility. They want you to know that they're open and serving North Central Florida, Gainesville locale now, with new scheduling focused on you, the patient. Customer service is important to them. And so if you are busy and you can't make a daytime appointment or even during the week, they will custom make an appointment for you to come up and get your MRI. And by the way, if you don't have insurance, they'll take cash or card. So they'll make it available. So if you need help, go to titanmri.com, look up the information, give them a call and check them out. And modern equipment makes it much more easy to do the MRI testing. You don't have to get claustrophobic, which Fran Spears does, and others like us. And so check them out, titanmri.com. Friends, putting it down in historical perspective, the 9-1 run by Tim Walton's team has got to rank up there at the University of Florida.
It was pretty amazing, particularly when you consider they got run ruled by Florida State. And every game since then has been against a ranked team. Um, they started out uh, the Texas A&M series a week ago this past Friday. They were 16th in RPI, which means that they were going to host a regional. But to host a super regional as well, you had to be one of the top 8 seeds. And jumping 8 places in 10 days, unprecedented. And they did it by not just beating people, they just dominated people. Um, Tim said a week ago Sunday, he said, it's one thing to get hot, it's another thing to get hot at the right time. And this team got hot at the right time, and that makes them very, very dangerous. Last night on the selection show, that's what some of the people were talking about was beware of the Florida Gators. They're young, but they're really good, and they're hot right now. And I think I think Florida's capable of getting to Oklahoma City and not only getting there, but having a real presence here. I don't know if they can win it all. You're talking about going against Texas and Oklahoma teams that are really, really uh, loaded up with veterans. Oklahoma State will stand in the way as well. But I think Florida is prepared to make a good run and acquit themselves quite well. which is amazing when you consider the freshmen that play here. Um, this has been a really, really good testament to a coach who took all these young kids and let them go at their own pace. He didn't push them. He pushed them hard enough, but he didn't push them too hard. And he let them experience some failures too. You look at what happened with Keegan Rothrock and Ava Brown pitching, and they endured some pretty bad dust ups there, but he let them pitch their way through it. Um, how are you going to handle adversity in Oklahoma City at the College World Women's College World Series if you haven't been able to handle it in the regular season? Sometimes you have to learn from your mistakes, and he let them make mistakes. And fortunately, he had a team that can make up for a lot of mistakes because when you got hitters like the Gators have, um, you're never out of a game.
As Shane mentioned, first five guys in the lineup, women, were all SEC. Has that ever happened before?
Uh, it may have happened back when he had Francesca Nia and Asia Pakulba and Megan Bush and that bunch.
Be worth looking into. That sounds incredible. How
it
the first
it
five
may have
guys back
happened then,
on.
but I'm not sure it did, buddy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they, you know, and let's face it, Skylar Wallace
What a
just all
year.
of a
What
sudden
an unbelievable year.
flipped the switches. She was 7 for 47. Get this, in the month of April.
Wow.
She was 7 for 11 in 2 days.
And
In
how many home
Palmer,
runs? How many number of home runs? Yeah.
home run in each game.
Yeah.
She's homered in 4 straight games now. Um, she homered in the final game of the regular season
Yeah.
against Texas A&M. Here's what's interesting about her home runs too, buddy. They're all to dead center field, and you know what that tells me? Well, I mean, they may be a little bit off to the
A
left
lot
or a
of
little bit off
power.
to the right,
A lot of power.
but that tells you that she's hitting the ball. Her timing
Solid.
is
Yeah.
impeccable
Mhm.
because she's hitting the ball straight
On,
on at
on the
just the
nose.
right
Yeah.
time.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
they made it. They had an interesting comment about her too. Is she does not have one of these high arc launch angles. I mean, she's not
Yeah. Line
giving
drives. Line drives. Yeah.
a strong uppercut. She's getting the loft on the ball just because she's swinging so
Yeah.
hard and swinging and meeting the ball just as it's pitched. And
Yeah.
an amazing shortstop too. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, and I would dare say there aren't two players in softball faster than her. Maybe Kendra
Best
Falvey, but
player you ever saw? Best player you ever saw?
uh, right up there with the best.
Shane
Right up
says
there with the best.
Shane says the best he's ever seen.
Um, she's right up there with the best.
Yeah.
And I
All
say
right,
that
that's
because
fine. No, that's okay. I just wanted to get
I
your
say that
thoughts.
because Florida had Lauren Hager, and Lauren Hager
Yeah.
had 70 wins in the circle and 70 home runs in her career.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever done that.
I got you. All right. So everybody wants to know, is asking, what do you think is realistic on Carmine McLean? Recount for me if you can recall it. He was coming to Florida and he went to Colorado and back and forth, and now he's coming back to say maybe taking a visit, making comments like he thinks they got it together around here. Even if he doesn't have a scholarship, he can get an NIL deal, which will pay for his tuition, right? Tell me where they stand. What's the realistic expectation? Is he the guy that he once was as a 5-star? And how aggressive Billy Napier is going to go after it?
I think Billy is going to temper this visit with, okay, if you come here, you better be loyal. Billy is big on loyalty, buddy, as you know. This is one of his hot buttons. Loyalty means something to this coach. Um, You have coaches, and I'm not going to knock Dion because Dion's got his own ways and methods and everything like this. But you look at the revolving door that is Colorado and the revolving door that was Jackson State when he was there, and it seems pretty obvious that loyalty is not a really big deal with Dion. It is with Billy Napier. It isn't with a lot of coaches that we see out there. But I think that there's something to be said about it. I know where he gets at. He worked for two people who demand loyalty, and that's Dabo and Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys demand loyalty, and it's a carryover from what he's learned in the past. And I think he demands it of his players. And I don't think Cormani McLean comes here unless he has a come to Jesus with Billy Napier and agrees, okay, coach, I'm yours. I'm a Gator. I'm gonna live, eat, sleep, breathe Florida Gators because that's what I think it's going to take for him to come here. Um, Billy has turned down, and I heard this from somebody that I trust and respect. Billy has turned down a lot of very talented guys who really wanted to transfer in here. But he's got he's got his to-do list. And if you don't check all the boxes on his to-do list, you're not coming here. And at the top of his list is that thing called loyalty. And
Hard to come
I
by these days. It's hard to come by.
yeah, and you got to if you're taking in transfers, this is one of the things I've learned about Billy. If you're taking in transfers, you got to be transferring for the right reasons. If you're transferring in for the wrong reasons, then he doesn't want you. And guys who just come because Florida may have a big NIL deal that can wrap up, that's not going to cut it with him. NIL's part of the package, yes. But if that's the only reason you're coming is because Florida is the highest bidder, then he's not interested. I do know that. And it's refreshing in one respect. Um, you know, you got to wonder with some of these guys who transfer, and you sit there and you look at how these other teams are loading up, and you wonder, okay, should we be spending more money? Should we be doing this? Should we be doing that? And I think a coach has got to be comfortable in his own skin. Um, you had Steve on a little bit ago, and one of the things I loved about Steve Spurrier was he was always comfortable in his own skin, always has been. Um, never felt the need to be somebody other than, never felt the need to be the next so and so, but always wanted to be the first best Steve Spurrier. And I think that you got to have a program that's founded on those principles. Come here because you want to be a Gator. Come here because you want to be part of something good.
Well, you want to
That
build pride in the program. That's what you want to do, and you have to
yeah.
do it. But nothing builds pride like winning. So it's the chicken and the egg. You got to win. Friends, now remaining moments here. I want you to weigh in on a great player that's come and gone, and unfortunately didn't end like he hoped it would, and we hoped he would. Jack Caglione played his final game yesterday, and he had such a phenomenal career here. He will never get his just due because his team didn't do well enough. Talk about you saw him play many times. What it's like to see a great player like Caglione play.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Saturday, Kentucky intentionally walked him 4 times. That should tell you something. And when they did pitch to him, when they did pitch to him, he doubled the ball off the wall. I mean, a laser shot off there. Um, the thing I'm going to remember about him was nothing ever took away the joy of playing baseball, and it was obvious. Uh, Competitive fire, yeah, you could see that on the mound, when he's throwing and he doesn't get the right call or whatever like that. You can tell that when he rounds third base and the other team is chirping at him, and he's ready to go plow into the middle of that other dugout and take everybody on. But all those things aside, there's always been that joy of playing the game. Um, who was it that once said, the greatest thing about baseball is I'm an adult and I get to play a game. I get to play a kid's game. You've heard that quote a bunch of
Yeah,
times,
yeah,
and
yeah,
different variations of it.
yeah.
Well, this is a 21-year-old big kid, 6'6", 250 pounds, and still skinny. Built, I can only imagine what happens when he fills out his body.
Mm.
And I can only imagine how hard he's going to hit the baseball. Um, he had a hit last weekend when it just goes boom like that, and it was like seeing a golf ball coming down on a green and the chunks of grass flying everywhere. And this is a baseball coming down, boom like this, and he hits so hard, he swings so hard,
Yeah.
and yet he rarely swings and misses. And he
And
a
he
gold
pitches. He also pitches. Let's not forget that.
and a Gold Glove fielder. He's a Gold Glove first baseman. Phenomenal athlete. And the fun thing about it is they'd bring him in there for press conferences, and he's always grinning and he's always giggling. He's just a big kid, and he's loving what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I hope and I hope that when he gets into professional baseball, he's going to be fast tracked to the major leagues. Um,
Yeah. I
I,
always
I
love.
hope I hope when he gets there that the joy of playing the game
Yeah.
isn't overrun by
I
the
hope so
business
too.
of
I
being
hope
in the
so
game.
too. Of all the lines, all those baseball movies we saw, probably my favorite line was in The Natural when Redford said, "God, I love baseball." It just
Yeah.
gives me cold chills to hear it again. So, anyway, all right, Francis, good stuff, buddy. Good to talk to you again. Great stuff you've been writing online. Keep up the good. Keep us up to date. What's going on now? All this baseball, softball, track, tennis, golf. I mean, my word, friends, there's a lot going on
Well,
here.
hey, it's great to be a Gator. And let me throw in something about Mike Holloway. The Gators finished fourth in the men, third in the women. It's very deceiving because Florida's going to go into the national championships with probably the best shot to win it all.
This is a series.
Arkansas, and let me tell you why. Arkansas, for example, in the 5,000 meters. Now Parker Volby won it. Arkansas had 8 runners in there.
Wow.
Now they're just they're running all these runners that aren't going to be able
Hmm.
to get to the nationals. They won't have qualifying runs, but they get points for the SEC. Mike runs the people at the SEC who he thinks are going to get points at the nationals. And Florida is going to be in really great shape at the nationals. I think the women have a legitimate chance to win it. I don't know about LSU is going to be right there too. LSU's got tremendous sprinters, and I don't know that Florida's got the distance runners that they need to win it in the men, but they're going to be a top 3. But they've got a legitimate chance to win them both. Mike Holloway has 13 national championships
Amazing.
by himself.
Needs to
You
have a
can take the
statue. He needs to have a statue for sure.
coaching staff, the entire coaching staff at the other 13 SEC schools.
Mm-hmm.
The entire coaching staff add all their national championships together,
Still
and
having
it still doesn't equal 13. What
great
does that tell
stuff.
you?
Great stuff from Friends Beard. You can read him, by the way, all the time. He just does nothing but write. They put stories in front of me, just writes them and turns them out. Has a drink and goes back and turns out another one. Franz Beard, and he's a great team player. terrific reporter and great writer. And appreciate all you do, Francis. You can read him, subscribe to Gator Bay, support what we're doing. We'd like to be around for a while. Francis, thank you, buddy. Talk to
Thanks,
you in
man.
the next couple of days. Transparent, the great Transparent. All right, we're lucky to have people like that. All right, let me tell you about Renstar, a company that you've heard me mention many, many times, a company that means a lot to us. They're out of Ocala, and they're not only looking out for us in terms of our health, but they're also great patrons in the city of Ocala. They're constantly supporting things, big Gator fans. Let me remind you what you might want to do. They want you to know the importance of clinical trials. Clinical trials is a way that we bring new therapies to market. They have to be tested. Restore does this at the highest level, and they do it right here in Ocala. You can be a part of these. If you qualify, you could get paid for time and travel. So go to rinstar.net, look up the qualifications, and you can be taking a placebo pill, who knows? But you'll be helping us, helping them determine what is the safest therapy and the safest way to take care of people in our area. Rinstar Medical Research, remember, seeking tomorrow's answers for the health questions of today. Thank you for our guests tonight, for Shane Matthews, Steve Spurrier, Branch Beard, and all of you. Thank you for our sponsors. We're back in Panama City now for a few weeks. We'll be talking to you soon. Appreciate you. Have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow night with David Whitley and the team Tuesday night on the Buddy Barney Show.